Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm still getting my technology squared away, but I think I've got it so that I'll be able to see the chat. Um, and that's good. Yep. Okay. Um, so I've changed it so I can see the YouTube chat, and hopefully Jordan will rejoin me in a moment, and we'll get going properly. I do apologize for that inconvenience. Good morning, Robert. All right, well, this is going to be a barn burner, and so it's not going to be what you think, I believe. And so hang on to your hats, buckle up. It's not an easy one to listen to or to read, but I am going to do it. And hopefully Jordan will be able to get back to me here shortly. Let me just send him a quick message. Yeah. It's the same coordinates. And I thought I had canceled that other meeting, and I did cancel it, but Christmas, he says Zoom is telling him I have another meeting going, and this is Nick's true. And what do I have to do here? I guess I have to go in through YouTube and we'll do that. All right. So I apologize for the confusion here, everyone, but I need to make sure that I'm communicating with Jordan, and I think it should start to work. Let's see, YouTube Studio. And delete this. I'm going to delete this first one forever. Forever. There. Now there should only be one live stream showing on YouTube. And so hopefully that will resolve that fundamental issue. And okay. Excuse me for talking to myself, but it looks like I'm just gonna Okay, we're back, and I have chat on the YouTube channel, and so maybe I still have to delete something on. Sorry. All right, that's really irritating. All right, I'm gonna go with what I've got. I apologize to Jordan. Let's see, let me just send him a quick text. All right. So buckle up, everybody. This is going to be a interesting one. It's going to be not what you expect. And let's see. Wait just a minute. Maybe I can get this resolved. Zoom. Okay. Hopefully this will work now. I'm not clear why I'm having this difficulty, but with any luck, it will be okay. Yeah, hi, Judith. Yeah, this same thing. I went in a different way this morning, which was a regrettable mistake. And so I don't know what I'm doing anymore. But if you can follow on YouTube, that would be great. I now have the YouTube chat up, so I'm able to see that. And perhaps in 15 minutes or so, Zoom will recognize that I'm not using that other one and cancel it, because I thought I had ended it before, but it doesn't seem to want to cooperate. And here, all right, I'm not going to do that. All right. Okay, I'm not seeing what I'm not seeing, and so I'm going to just go ahead solo on YouTube and rely on my colleagues to be able to follow along on the YouTube channel. Oh boy, this is really, really confused. Okay, but I do have the, there's There's art, I thought. Okay, all right. So YouTube is working, and I'm just going to go ahead with that. And I apologize to anybody that couldn't get on the Zoom chat this morning. Okay, this is going to be a tough one, and I'm going to follow your YouTube chat. This morning we're reading from the Red Book by C.G. Jung, the Reader's Edition, and I'm on page 320. I'm just going to sort of blast through this active imagination. You'll see why I provided the warnings on this earlier. It's a very tough chapter to read and then apparently to understand. And I think I have understood it. And it comes right down in the end to this Christ's sacrificial suicide, which is what he did. And so the sacrificial murder. But this was the vision that I did not want to see, the horror that I did not want to live. A sickening feeling of nausea sneaks up on me, and abominable, perfidious serpents wind their way slowly and crackingly through parched underground. They hang down lazily and disgustingly lethargic from the branches, looped in dreadful knots. I am reluctant to enter this dreary and unsightly valley, where the bushes stand in arid, stony defiles. The valley looks so normal. Its air smells of crime, of foul, cowardly deeds. I am seized by disgust and horror. I walk hesitantly over the boulders, avoiding every dark place for fear of treading on a serpent. The sun shines weakly out of a gray and distant sky, and all the leaves are shriveled. A marionette with a broken head lies before me amidst the stones. A few steps further, a small apron, and then behind the bush, the body of a small girl, covered with terrible wounds, smeared with blood. One foot is clad with a stocking and shoe. The other is naked and gorily crushed. The head, where is the head? The head is a mash of blood with hair and whitish pieces of bone, surrounded by stones smeared with brain and blood. My gaze is captivated by this awful sight. A shrouded figure, like that of a woman, is standing calmly next to the child. Her face is covered by an impenetrable veil. She asks me, what then do you say? What should I say? This is beyond words. Do you understand this? I refuse to understand such things. I can't speak about them without becoming enraged. Why become enraged? You might as well rage every day of your life, for these and similar things occur every day. But most of the time we don't see them. So knowing that they happen is not enough to enrage you? If I merely have knowledge of something, it's easier and simpler. The horror is less real if all I have is knowledge. Step nearer and you will see that the body of the child has been cut open. Take out the liver. I will not touch this corpse. If someone witnessed this, they would think I'm the murderer. You are cowardly. Take out the liver. Why should I do this? This is absurd. I want you to remove the liver. You must do it. Who are you to give me such an order? I am the soul of this child. You must do this for my sake. I don't understand, but I'll believe you and do this horrific and absurd deed. I reach into the child's visceral cavity. It is still warm. The liver is still firmly attached. I take my knife and cut it free of the ligaments. Then I take it out and hold it with bloody hands toward the figure. She, I thank you. I, what should I do? She, you know what the liver means, and you ought to perform the healing act with it. I, what is to be done? She, take a piece of the liver in place of the whole and eat it. I, what are you demanding? This is absolute madness. This is desecration, necrophilia. You make me a guilty party to this most hideous of all crimes. She, you have devised the most horrible torment for the murderer, which could atone for this act. There is only one atonement: abase yourself and eat. I cannot refuse. I refuse. I cannot participate in this horrible guilt. She, you share myself for being a man. She, so take part in this act, abase yourself and eat. I need atonement. I, so shall it be for your sake, as you are the soul of the child? I kneel down on the stone, cut off a piece of the liver and put it in my mouth. My gorge rises. Tears burst from my eyes. Cold sweat covers my brow. A dull, sweet taste of blood. I swallow with desperate efforts. It is impossible. Once again and once again, I almost faint. It is done. The horror has been accomplished. She, I thank you. She throws her veil up, a beautiful maiden with ginger hair. Do you recognize me? I, how strangely familiar you are. Who are you? She, I am your soul. The sacrifice has been accomplished. The divine child, the image of God's formation, is slain, and I have eaten from the sacrificial flesh. The child, that is the image of God's formation, not only bore my human craving, but also enclosed all the primordial and elemental powers that the sons of the sun possess as an inalienable inheritance. The God needs all this for his genesis, but when he has been created and hastens away into unending space, we need the gold of the sun. We must regenerate ourselves, but as the creation of a God is a creative act of highest love, the restoration of our human life signifies an act of the below. This is a great and dark mystery. Man cannot accomplish this act solely by himself, but is assisted by evil, which does it instead of man. But man must recognize his complicity in the act of evil. He must bear witness to this recognition by eating from the bloody sacrificial flesh. Through this act, he testifies that he is a man, that he recognizes good as well as evil, and that he destroys the image of the God formation through withdrawing his life force, with which he also dissociates himself from the God. This occurs for the salvation of the soul, which is the true mother of the divine child. When it bore and gave birth to the God, my soul was of human nature throughout. It possessed the primordial powers since time immemorial, but only in a dormant condition. They flowed into forming the God without my help. But through the sacrificial murder, I redeemed the primordial powers and added them to my soul. Since they became part of a living pattern, they are no longer dormant, but awake and active and irradiate my soul with their divine working. Through this, it receives a divine attribute. Hence, the eating of the sacrificial flesh aided its healing. The ancients have also indicated this to us, in that they taught us to drink the blood and eat the flesh of the Savior. The ancients believed that this brought healing to the soul. There are many truths. There are not many truths. There are only a few. Their meaning is too deep to grasp other than in symbols. Okay, other than in symbols. Okay, so now this goes on for a bit, but that was a lot to take, and there are 2.5 pages of footnotes here, which I'm going to get to in due course, but I'm going to take some of your comments now and see what you have to say. So, okay. So Jonty says, imagine being angered and repulsed by something you didn't understand. Jung plumbs the endochronic depths on our behalf. Good morning, Art. Nice to see you. I have actually lived this, except much worse, says the big cat. Well, I think what's happening here, and I'll just, since there's no more comments as yet, I think I'll just make a couple of my own comments. I think what's happening here is that Jung is asking us to be aware of the evil in us, all of us, not just one person. And I think that Jesus Christ recognized this fact, and this was rather the meaning of the sacrificial suicide that he committed on himself, because he didn't have to die on the cross. He voluntarily went into Jerusalem and argued his case before the Pharisees and so on. And so so when it's said that Jesus died for our sins, Jesus recognized that we all are sinners, and he committed his act of atonement, which was to submit himself to crucifixion, recognizing that we're all sinners. And let's see. And so the result was that he atoned for the sins of mankind by, voluntarily going to death. Now, I think that the church has, and here's where we're going to get controversial, I think the church has done us a disservice, because it has turned Jesus's dying for the sins of man or humanity into a get out of jail free card. That's my impression. And so, I think in the last couple of 100 years, probably every murderer had in the back of his mind if he was a Christian. Well, I can confess my sins before I go to the gallows and everything will be hunky-dory with God. And, maybe that is true. That's a kind of atonement, but it suggests that you can commit sin. And what Jung wants us to see here, I believe, is that this was an evil act that was within him. This was his act of imagination. And anybody that has been in combat and seen the results of a firefight, let's say, has seen the sins of man up close. Okay. And they're pretty gruesome. And so when people wonder why does dear old dad not talk about the war, it's because he's had it's by and large a he. There are a few women. There are 10 women on the Vietnam Wall. And they were nurses, and so they surely saw the results of evil battle, both to Americans and to Vietnamese prisoners who got treated in the same way as the Americans did once they reached the hospital. And so we who were in Vietnam, we who were in Iraq and Afghanistan, surely know the evils of humanity. Okay, we've seen them up close and personal. We want to pretend that they are not within us. But on the other hand, at some level, we know that they are. And so what Jung is doing here, it seems to me, is showing through this passage, through this act of imagination, which he recorded fastidiously, that he too had evil within him, and that he was back in the primeval. He was taken back to the primeval. We'll talk a little bit more of that in a minute, but it's sort of Jung acknowledging that we all have these thoughts deep within us, and what happens? There's a scene in Mr. Jones, a movie entitled Mr. Jones. It came out in 2019. I urge you to see it, because once you see it, you will understand clearly why the Ukrainians will never stop against the Russians. They never will. Or they won't voluntarily, at least. And so if they don't voluntarily, then you see that there's a battle that can continue on for hundreds of years, as we see from our Civil War, which is still not finally resolved, although there was a peace treaty made. That's about all we can say about it. We still have these racial issues in our society, and we need to get beyond them. But the only way we can get beyond them is by recognizing our own sinfulness as it relates to them. That's hard to do. And so when any of us point our fingers at the other side in the red-blue controversy, we have to examine ourselves first. We have to know ourselves. And yes, there are things which I personally regard as evil, and on Truth Social, or not on Truth Social, on Threads, on Threads, the new version of well, the new competitor to Twitter, let's say, or to X. I've been publishing famous quotes of people who were addressing evil and the dark side of human nature. And this is in part why this is top of my mind. So if you, I'll put in here my Threads handle. I don't hide my, it says error, try it again. If that works. No, didn't like that either. I don't know why. That's weird. So my Threads handle is skip_Conover because I always speak in my own name. I saw the risks of anonymous, speaking anonymously about more than 30 years ago, and I made a pact with myself to speak in my own name because that's one way I control my own psyche, is by being responsible for what I say and not just throwing stuff out there. And so I take responsibility for everything that I talk about on this channel and everything in my life. Now, I'm going to go back and look. And Jonty says, Jesus knew the inflated scribes and elders would go off like a chip pan fire when he revealed God's grace. And Low Rider says, walking zombies trying to scratch that itch. John T, I was a Mo-star late 90s, agreed. The Big Cat. I think the most important thing Jung explored was recognition and acceptance of evil within as part of his being. His criticism of the Catholic Church was not having a place for evil. And Dionysus says, you are to bear the cross with Christ. Those that view it as a get out of jail free card are disingenuous. We could say that. And John T. Lau, more poverty revealed. Dionysus, more nonsense. Kimberly, my dad was a combat medic in Vietnam, two tours. He wanted to be a surgeon. He ended up being a safety consultant. The Big Cat. Evil is so easy to see in others. It is very difficult to see in ourselves. Big part of Jesus and Jung's teachings. John T. That true, large feline. The Big Cat. I will always be anonymous on the internet, always. Vincent, as a mixed race person, I find myself feeling very mercurial in my intermediary position in culture. Jordan, same here. Judith, after restarting, I received the host has another meeting in progress. Okay, I'm sorry about that. Juro, good afternoon from Munich. Dear Skip and dear everyone, wave to Jordan too. Okay, so Jordan, you might want to keep trying. Maybe it will have discontinued that other one by now. I hope so. I'm going to continue on with the reading here. And there's a bit more to have, and there's a very long footnote that needs to be read. And so I'll read this, and I'll note that the next three paragraphs, long ago, I decided, how can I disseminate the red book? And I decided to do what some people were doing with the Bible, and they were putting verses of the Bible onto Twitter, and they were committed to do it all the way through. I don't know if they did. I didn't pay attention to it that much, but I started to do it with the red book. And what I would do is I would take a whole paragraph, and I would read, because Twitter, if you put something here and then put something here and then put something here, if you read them in order, then if somebody comes and reads your timeline later on, they'll be in reverse order. So I figured that out early on. And so what I did was, paragraph by paragraph, I started to read the red book in reverse order, which was a very interesting exercise, because what I learned by doing that is that it makes absolutely the same amount of sense in both directions. And so, I would, thank you for the hearts there. I appreciate that. So now this next part are three paragraphs that I did read into Twitter. I read them in reverse order, so I'll think about reading them that way in a minute. But here they are. A God. Okay, so the previous paragraph was, there are not many truths, there are only a few. Their meaning is too deep to grasp other than in symbols. And the footnote to that is, Jung developed his ideas concerning the significance of symbols in psychological types. And the essence of it is that some problems of, good and evil and so on are so knotty that you can't know what the right answer is. And so your psyche, your unconscious, will send you in a dream or a vision a symbol of what the answer is. And then you have to work out what that symbol means. And it's what it means to you, because anything that you look at, whether it's the cross or the Star of David or the partial moon that appears in Islam, they mean so many different things to people that there's no two people that sees them alike. And so here we go again. And Jung at one point said, I speak in symbols. So, and Dr. Edinger observed that if you take a paragraph of Jungian thought anywhere in the collected works, each paragraph doesn't necessarily represent a new topic, as we are taught to do in our grammar classes. It represents a complete symbol. And so he speaks in symbols. Every paragraph that he speaks is a symbol, and you should read it that way. And Jati says, And Michelle says, can you show us some images today if there's time? I'm not sure I have all these images, but I will show you some if I can. But you should take the paragraph as a symbol and as an image. So here I go. A God that is no stronger than man, what is he? You still should taste holy dread. How would you be worthy of enjoying the wine and the bread if you have not touched the black bottom of human nature? Hence, you are lukewarm and pale shadows, proud of your shallow coastlines and broad country roads, but the floodgates will be opened. There are inexorable things from which only God can save you. The primordial force is the radiance of the sun, which the sons of the sun have carried in themselves for eons and pass on to their children. But if the soul dips into radiance, she becomes as remorseless as the God himself, since the life of the divine child, which you have eaten, will feel like glowing coals in you. It will burn inside you like a terrible, inexorable fire, an inextinguishable fire. But despite all the torment, you cannot let it be, since it will not let you be. From this, you will understand that your God is alive and that your soul has begun wandering in remorseless paths. You feel that the fire of the sun has erupted in you. Something new has been added to you, a holy affliction. Sometimes you no longer recognize yourself. You want to overcome it, but it overcomes you. You want to set limits, but it compels you to keep going. You want to elude it, but it comes with you. You want to employ it, but you are its tool. You want to think about it, but your thoughts obey it. Finally, the fear of the inescapable seizes you, for it comes after you slowly and invincibly. There is no escape. So it is that you come to know that what a real God is. Now you'll think up clever truisms, preventive measures, secret escape routes, excuses, potions capable of inducing forgetfulness, but it's all useless. The fire burns right through you. That which guides forces you onto the way. But the way is my own self, my own life founded upon myself. The God wants my life. He wants to go with me, sit at the table with me, work with me. Above all, he wants to be ever present. But I'm ashamed of my God. I don't want to be divine, but reasonable. The divine appears to me as irrational craziness. I hate it as an absurd disturbance of my meaningful human activity. It seems an unbecoming sickness which has stolen into the regular course of my life. Yes, I even find the divine superfluous. All right, that is the end of the text. I have not yet gotten into this long footnote, but I want to share with you one thing before I do that. And that is, I want to read it backwards. And you tell me whether I'm right or not, but I believe that it probably makes as much sense backwards as forwards. I'll take some of your comments first. So Michelle had asked for some images. I will look for images at some point here. Michelle. John T says, truth is a lion. You cannot manipulate it. It will bite your head off. Kimberly, I have had dreams about friendly lions. Vincent, I understand the idea of myth and archetype having to fill the needs of the unconscious, but Christ was myth and a real figure as he so fulfills it perfectly. You cannot, Michelle, you cannot let it be, since it will not let you be. Deep, and she's got an ocean with some whales. John T, imagine somebody telling you the spirit that you had known your entire life was a myth. Laugh out loud. I suppose they reveal their poverty and not mine. John T gives us a kiss emoji. Vincent, does individuation involve finding the Holy Spirit? Yeah, I think so, because finding the living God is a matter of finding it within yourself. And once you understand what the living God is, then you can live your life more truly. And it seems to me. And I did a talk about this called Finding the Living God on this YouTube channel. Or I did it at a church back in 2019. And you can find it on this YouTube channel, what I said about it. Dionysa says, do you enjoy casting stones? And I would just say what the Bible says, let he who is without sin cast the first stone. Vincent, myth is story, but narrative is the deepest truth. Religion is meta-narrative, speaking of another's poverty. And a laughing emoji from Dionysus. Jordan, inner divinity as the Holy Spirit. And Vincent, thanks guys. And this is the most beautiful psychology and truth. And Jiro, in a sense, the Holy Ghost likely finds you first. And Vincent, grace, humility. Kathy, there are no stupid questions, but I can't help but wonder if Dr. Jung ever experienced some ritualistic child sacrifice. Well, he certainly experienced this one that we're reading today. And he understood its consequences, and he understood that this is the evil within him. But he also, in my view, understood that this is the evil within all of us. Is God only in the eros, says Vincent? Well, no, because in the Bible it says in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And any word is logos, that's all logos. And it was only by meditating on that passage and understanding it that I could adopt it for my own, and that all came through logos. So as we look at chaos, what I've been doing in my artwork lately has been looking at chaos and then bringing order into it. So we have both in operation within our psyches, and God is within both. I mean, you feel it. And as I've been doing this as a meditation technique now for several months since I learned about it. I sure, I definitely feel that. I apologize. I got some virus at school in February, and it gave me laryngitis and so on. But the virus is long gone. But it seems that it has aggravated mild lifelong asthma that I've had. And I am going to see a doctor about it tomorrow. But I apologize that it is causing me to cough and sneeze quite a bit right lately. And this is even with me taking lots of allergies. Okay, going on. Let's see. And Dionysus says, worshiping Baal. And obviously that's the devil. Anthony, the drives as superfluous means if it has no relevance to you, you are better to ignore it. Well, that wouldn't be the way to individuation, I don't think. It's better to understand yourself, know yourself, and this has been a watchword since the time of the Greeks. The symbol of my college is an angel pulling a cover off the head of a young child and showing them the truth and knowing. And there's one, it says know thyself. So and that's come down from the Greeks. Kimberly says, I've been called to look at the opposites of things lately. Kathy, or maybe he heard about such things. Vincent, I've been plagued by the opposites since a child, terrible nightmares. Vincent, what I would say is that if you still have those nightmares, then you should reflect on them, okay, and reflect on what they mean. And I'm not a mental health professional, but Jung at the end of his life said that he doesn't dream anymore. And I think that means that he no longer has these dreams, which are symbols of the idea of the opposite, certainly. And if you're still having those dreams, I think from a Jungian point of view, it would suggest that you need some reflection on those. And why are you getting those dreams? Think about them, write them down, and reflect on them in your own time. I mean, this is what a Jungian analyst will help you do for a handy $150 an hour. I can't help you that way, and I don't claim to be a mental health professional, but they suggest some opposites within you. Jordan says, the divine is superfluous as it indicates a search outside for the divinity that naturally resides within. Michelle, I haven't yet looked up the definition of superfluous. Superfluous means it's irrelevant to this conversation, I guess. And Dionysus says the deity encompasses all unity and disunity. Vincent, maybe God is balance. Who is Braxis? Well, Braxis is everything. And so, yeah, he's balanced, because we don't see other planets, at least we haven't yet seen other planets that are as unbalanced, let's say, as ours is, and that's mainly a result of the human species. John T says people like steak, but not how it gets on the plate. And quite right. And as I've often said, everything that you take home from the grocery store was once alive. And as the Buddhists say, all life lives on other life, and you have to go on. So you have to do that. Jordan, the child sacrifice, the child becomes the acorn shell sloughed, and the child births the adult. Metaphorical sacrifice, moving from one phase of individuation through the passage into another. Absolutely. And Vincent, I've been watching your videos for more than 5 years. Love this channel, Skip. Thanks for everything. Thank you, Vincent. I really appreciate that. And I really appreciate the fact that we've definitely developed a following here. And I'm very impressed, because a video we did a couple of weeks ago had over 800 hits. That's just remarkable to me. And so I appreciate that. I hope you'll come and meet me at Confluence this fall in October, where we're going to be looking at the collective unconscious mainly. And John T, so real it can touch you from the inside out. Kimberly, wow, Jordan, after having my 2 daughters, I can see how they birthed me. Much self-awareness came once they were in my life. Jordan, and that you as well birthed yourself as an adult, Kimberly. And Kathy says, somehow using superfluous and divine as mutually exclusive is coming across to me as arrogant and independent of spirit. Just can't agree with the content. And that's an interesting observation, Kathy. I appreciate that. Vincent, it's very strange. Jung taught me to understand my unconscious, and development simultaneously affected my dream life. Kimberly, Jordan, there's much realization, yes. And Vincent shows a heart and an arm. And Kimberly, my mind is showing me a picture of a mandala. Well, that's very nice, because that's what we're trying to get across here. So I'm going to take these 4 paragraphs and I'm going to read them backward, one sentence at a time. And you can tell me after I've done this whether it means the same thing in reverse. That which guides forces you onto the way. The fire burns right through you. Now you'll think up clever truisms, preventive measures, secret escape routes, excuses, potions capable of inducing forgetfulness, but it's all useless. So it is that you come to know what a real God is. There is no escape. You want to employ it, but you are its tool. You want to think about it, but your thoughts obey it. Finally, the fear of the inescapable seizes you, for it comes after you slowly and invincibly. You want to elude it, but it comes with you. You want to set limits, but it compels you to keep going. You want to overcome it, but it overcomes you. Sometimes you no longer recognize yourself. You feel that the fire of the sun has erupted in you. Something new has been added to you, a holy affliction. From this, you will understand that your God is alive and that your soul has begun wandering on remorseless paths. But despite all the torment, you cannot let it be, since it will not let you be. It will burn inside you like a terrible, inextinguishable fire. I have to get back to the beginning of these sentences. But if the soul dips into radiance, she becomes as remorseless as the God himself, since the life of the divine child which you have eaten will feel like glowing coals in you. It will glow inside you like a terrible, inextinguishable fire. The primordial force is the radiance of the sun, which the sons of the sun have carried in themselves for eons and pass on to their children. But the floodgates will be opened. There are inexorable things from which only God can save you. Hence you are lukewarm and pale shadows, proud of your shallow coastlines and broad country roads. How would you be worthy of enjoying the wine and the bread if you have not touched the black bottoms of human nature? You still should taste holy dread. A God who is no stronger than man, what is he? Okay, so that is the reading in reverse, and I'll just see what you've said about whether it more or less means the same thing. And Vincent, I'm in the tri-state area. I'll see if I can make it out to Confluence. And Michelle, the lotus symbol. Jordan, superfluous, as it indicates that looking for the divine outside of one itself is beside the point. Spirit is relatively superfluous when not nestled in soul. The light nested in the dark, both and. Janti, the interior church is the emergent phenomenon, not the external man-made efforts, impressive as they are. And I think that, that definitely has applied to me in my experience with Jungian psychology. When I read this the first time, I was really moved, and I've been moving ever since. And Jordan, I'm sorry Jordan isn't able to get on here to comment today. That was due to my mess up, but he'll be back next week, I'm sure, and I'll give him the opportunity to comment on this week at that point. And I think that the point is that Jung here is bearing the evil in him. And, later on in this book, he says, have you ever thought of the evil in you? And that's a very powerful passage. If I can find it, maybe I can't quickly. All right, I guess I can't. Let me just look and see if I have any of these images here, which I will do. I have over 1 million files on my hard drive, so I have a pretty good filing system, but pretty good is not necessarily great. Let's see here. We start with image 79. Guess I don't have them. I haven't properly sorted them, and I apologize for that because we've been moving my office into these new digs, and I've been very disjointed. I will uncloak for a moment and give you a sense of where I am now. There's some good points and there's some bad points. The comment has been made that I have a pink Barbie wall. It's actually raspberry, I believe, is the color. And over my shoulder here is a painting that I did some years ago of the scene, which is right out there. And over here, this is a portrait of me that was done by a professional artist that my mother-in-law's had on her wall. This is her bedroom for a couple of decades now. And so it's when I was a younger man. And I have gotten my Jung books out of these are my wife's books I'm showing you here. These are my books over here, where I've started to get my Jung books out and put on the bookshelf. I have this little furry creature, and I have no idea its origin, but for some reason I keep it as a talisman. And if I now look to my right, this is a swimming pool, and my distance from that swimming pool is less than 100 feet. And this is a community pool, so I haven't been in it in 4 years because of COVID. But anyway, that's my new environment. And so we're gradually getting that worked out, but it could have been worse. That's what I would say, getting this set up. And so Jordan says, superfluous is as it indicates that looking for the divine outside of oneself is besides the point. Spirit is relatively superfluous when not nestled in soul, the light nested in the dark, both and. Jonty says the interior church is the emergent phenomenon, not the external man-made efforts, impressive as they are. And when you go to a great cathedral, for example, they can be quite impressive. I've been in Notre Dame twice before it burned. And, I said, wow, okay, it's a nice church, but it didn't touch my soul until it burned, believe it or not. And I have always found the chapel at the Naval Academy to touch my soul most deeply. John Z says the interior church is the emergent phenomenon, not the external man-made efforts, impressive as they are. Kathy, spirit can be superfluous anymore than the cosmos can be mundane. Spirit is in all things, not dependent on a thinker. And Judith says, each paragraph is so potent. Yes, it works equally both ways. Anthony, it seems as if the backward reading has a mirror reflection quality to it. Agreed. Kathy, I'm becoming aware of the evil in me, however, not to the depths of Dr. Jung. He's courageous, definitely, absolutely. John T., the richest of fruitcakes. Jung threatens indigestion if you try to scoff his work. Yes, Kathy, I'll eat you up. I love you so. And Kimberly, we have no way of telling Skip when he freezes. I apologize for that. If I do freeze, you can just leave a note here telling me where I froze, and I'll try to go back. And Vincent, very bright God lighting in the room. And Vincent, good. Okay. All right. So that is that. And so now I'm going to try to read these footnotes. They're in a much smaller typeface font. So I have to take my glasses off so that I can read them. So footnote 153. I'm looking at page 325 of the reader's edition, if you're following along. And so footnote 123. In 1909, Jung had his house built in Kusnacht and had the following motto from the Delphic oracle carved above the door: Vocatus atque non vocatus Deus adoret. Called or not called, God will be present. The source of the quotation was Erasmus's Collectantia Adagiorum. Jung explained the motto as follows. It says, yes, the God will be on the spot, but in what form and to what purpose? I have put the inscription there to remind my patients and myself. Timor Dei initium sapientia, Psalm 11 or 111:10. Psalm 111:10. Here another not less important road begins, not the approach to Christianity, but to God himself. And this seems to be the ultimate question. Jung to Eugene Rolfe, November 19th, 1960. I'll read that again. Here another not less important road begins, not the approach to Christianity, but to God himself. Footnote 154. There is a note at bottom of page 21. Okay. August 21st, 1917, possibly an abbreviation of Fesset or Maid. Okay, I'm not sure that's important. Okay, so now paragraph 1 or footnote 155. I think this is, well, there's a couple here still. Okay, in Black Book 7, in Jung's fantasy of October 7th, 1917, a figure appears, Ha, who says he is the father of Philemon. Jung's soul describes him as a black magician. His secret is the runes, which Jung's soul wants to learn. He refuses to teach them, but shows some examples which Jung's soul asks him to explain. Some of the runes later appear in these paintings. About the runes in this painting, he explained, see the two with different feet, one earth foot and one sun foot, which reach toward the upper cone and have the sun inside. But I have made one crooked line toward the other sun. Therefore, one must reach downward. Meanwhile, this upper sun comes out of the cone and the cone gazes after it, dejected about where it is going. One has to retrieve it with a hook and would like to place it in the small prison. Then the three have to stand together, unite and twirl up at the top. With this, they manage to free the sun from its prison again. Now you make the thick bottom and a roof where the sun sits safe at the top, but inside the house, the other sun has risen also. Therefore, you too are coiled up at the top and have made a roof over the prison again at the bottom, so that the upper sun cannot enter. The two suns always want to be together. I said so, didn't I? The two cones, each has a sun. You want to let them come together, because then you think that thus you could be one. You have not now drawn up both suns and brought them to one another and now slope to the other side. That is important, but then there are simply two suns at the bottom. So therefore, you have to go to the lower cone, then you put the suns together there, but in the middle, neither at the bottom nor at the top. Therefore, there are not four, but two. But the upper cone is at the bottom, and there is a thick roof. And if you want to continue, you long to return with both arms, both at the bottom, and you have a prison for two for both of you. Okay, I'm going to stop in the middle of that footnote because now it's reminding me what these images are, and I might have them. So let me just do a quick check again. And maybe I can find them. Let me see. Because it would be important to look at them. And okay. All right, so I think All right, I do have what I think he's talking about, so I'm going to share it. All right, so here is the rune, and as you can see, there are different parts here that are kind of rune-like, a Semitic language as we know it. And he's talking about this cauldron. Let's see. And then he later is talking about this with the suns and the top and the bottom that are cones. I think he's talking about that. So that might help to understand that. And so you can come back to this and look at it again on the video later on. All right. So I think that was what was being referred to there. Yeah, and Michelle says there's a promise in the big book. He comes close to those who seek him. And so, yeah, surely. All right, I'm going to read on. This is 2 pages of footnotes, but okay, I guess I'll put this one image back up. All right, I think this is the image she's referring to in this. I'm not 100% sure, but at the bottom you have a prison for 2, for both of you. Therefore, you make a prison for the lower sun and fall toward the other side. To get the lower sun out of the prison, this is what you long for, and the upper cone comes and makes a bridge toward the lower, taking back its sun, which has run away before. Now the morning clouds come into the lower cone, but in its sun is beyond the line, invisible. Now you are one and happy that you have the sun at the top, and long to be up there too, but you are imprisoned in the prison of the lower sun that is rising. There is a stop. Now you make something quadrilateral above, which you can call thoughts, a person without doors with thick walls, so that the upper sun does not leave, but the cone has already gone. You lean toward the other side, long for the below, and coil up at the bottom. Then you are one and make the serpent's way between the suns. That is amusing and important. But because it was amusing below, there is a roof above, and you must raise upward the hook with both arms so that it goes through the roof. But the sun below is free, and there is a prison above. You look downward, but the upper sun looks toward you. But you stand upright as a pair and have detached the serpent from you. You have probably been put off. Therefore, you make a prison for the below. Now the serpent crosses the sky above the earth. You are driven completely apart. The serpent wriggles its way through the sky around all the stars far above the earth. At the bottom, it says, the mother gives me this wisdom. Be you content. And to Aniela Yaffe, Jung recounted that he had had a vision of a red clay tablet inscribed with hieroglyphics and embedded in his bedroom wall. Embedded in his bedroom wall, and that he had transcribed the tablet the following day. He felt that it contained an important message, but he didn't understand it. In letters to Sabina Spielrein, dated September 13th and October 10th, 1917, Jung commented on the significance of some hieroglyphs she'd seen in a dream. On October 10th, he wrote to her that with your hieroglyphics, you are dealing with phylogeneric engrams of a historical symbolic nature. Commenting on the contempt meted out to transformations and symbols of the libido by the Freudians, he described himself as clinging to his runes, which he would not hand over to those who would not understand them. The letters of Jung to Sabina Spielrein, Journal of Analytical Psychology 4, 2001, pages 187 and 188. And see if I can find this. Maybe need to go back to. Okay, let's at the bottom of this image, you do see some of the runes, and you can actually see stick figures doing things here. So just we'll use those as an example so that I can read this next part about the runes, and you can understand what I'm talking about. Obviously, none of us will understand the runes, even if I'm showing you the right image. So just to give you a sense of what Jung was putting in Black Book 7. The runes in this painting appear in Black Book 7 in the entry of October 7th, 1917. Jung appended the date 10 September 1917 to them. Ha explained, if you have managed to move the arc forward, you make a bridge below and move upward and downward from the center, or you separate above and below, split the sun again and crawl like the serpent over to the upper and receive the lower. You take with you what you have experienced and go forward to something new. And then footnote 157, and this is the last footnote, and it goes on for a page and a half, so I'm going to take a little sip of water before I start. The runes in this painting appear in Black Book 7 in the entry of October 7th, 1917. Jung appended the date 11 September 1917 to them. Ha explained, now, however, you make a bridge between you and the one longs for the below, but the serpent crawls up, crawls at the top and draws the sun up. Then both of you move upward and want to go to the upper. But the sun is below and tries to draw you down, but you draw a line above the below and long for the above and are completely at one. There the serpent comes and wants to drink from the vessel of the below, but there comes the upper cone and stops like the serpent. The looking coils back and moves forward again, and afterward you very much long to return, but the lower sun pulls and thus you become balanced again. But soon you fall backwards, since the one that has reached out toward the upper sun, the other does not want this, and so you fall asunder, and therefore you must bind yourself together 3 times. I think we might be talking about this one. So I'm going to put that up. Then you stand upright again, and you hold both suns before you, as if they were your eyes, the light of the above and the below before you, and you stretch your arms out toward it, and you come together to become one, and must separate the 2 suns, and you long to return a little to the lower and reach out toward the upper. But the lower cone has swallowed the upper cone into itself because the suns were so close. Therefore, you place the upper cone back up again, and because the lower is then no longer there, you want to draw it up again and have a profound longing for the lower cone while it is empty. Above, since the sun above, the line is invisible. Because you have longed to return downward for so long, the upper cone comes down and tries to capture the invisible lower sun within itself. There the serpent's way goes at the very top. You are split, and everything below is beneath the ground. You long to be further above, but the lower longing already comes crawling like a serpent, and you build a prison over her. But there this lower comes up, and you long to be at the very bottom, and the 2 suns suddenly reappear close together. You long for this and come to be imprisoned. Then the one is defiant, and the other longs to and the other longs for the below. The prison opens. The one longs even more to be below, but the defiant one longs for the above and is no longer defiant, but longs for what is to come. Thus it comes to pass, the sun rises at the bottom, but it is imprisoned, and above 3 nest boxes are made for you 2 and the upper sun, which you expect because you have imprisoned the lower one. But now the upper cone comes down powerfully and divides you and swallows the lower cone. This is impossible. Therefore, you place the cones tip to tip and curl up toward the front in the center, because that's no way to leave matters. So it has to happen otherwise. The one attempts to reach upward, the other downward. You must strive to do this, since if the tips of the cones meet, they can hardly be separated anymore. Therefore, I have placed the hard seed in between, tip to tip, which would be so beautifully regular. This pleases father and mother, but where does that leave me and my seed? Therefore, a quick change of plan. One makes a bridge between you both, imprisons the lower sun again, and one longs for the above and the below, but the other longs especially strongly for the forward, above, and below. Thus the future can become. See how well I can already say it. Yes, indeed, I am cleverer than you. Since you have taken matters in hand so well, you also get everything beneath the roof and into the house, the serpent and the 2 suns. That is always most amusing. But you are separated, and because you have drawn the line above, the serpent and the suns are too far below. This happens because beforehand you curled around yourself from below, but you come together and into an agreement and stand upright, because it is good and amusing and fine, and you say, thus shall it remain. But down comes the upper cone because it felt dissatisfied that you had set a limit above beforehand. The upper cone reaches out immediately for its son, but there is nowhere a son to be found anymore, and the serpent also jumps up to catch the sons. You fall over, and one of you is eaten by the lower cone. With the help of the upper cone, you get him out, and in return, you give the lower cone its son, and the upper cone its as well. You spread yourself out like the one-eyed who wanders in heaven, and hold the cones beneath you. But in the end, matters will go awry. You leave the cones and the sons to go and stand side by side and still do not want the same. In the end, you agree to bind yourself threefold to the upper cone descending from above. I am called Ha, 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 a jolly name. I am clever. But here, my last sign, that is the magic of the white man who lived in the great magic house, the magic which you call Christianity. Your medicine man said so himself. I and the Father are one. No one comes to the Father other than through me. I told you so. The upper cone is the Father. He has bound himself threefold to you and stands between the other and the Father. Therefore, the other must go through him if he wants to reach the cone. Okay, that probably sounded like a lot of gibberish, and in a way, it does sound gibberishy to me. However, in keeping with my intention to read the Red Book in its entirety, I read it to you in the hope that it might speak to you in some way, and that I wouldn't know. And so let me go back and see what else you folks have said. Yeah, and so I'm going to go back to Michelle's comment. There is a promise in the big book. He comes close to those who seek him. And here you really see the need for having the folio edition right in front of you. Now, my folio edition is now upstairs in the apartment in which we're living. And so I don't have it readily handy anymore. Used to be handy. But I don't know. I'm just going to leave the runes for you to consider. Kathy says, I'll eat you up. I love you so. Kimberly, we have no way of telling Skip when he freezes. Very bright God lighting the room. Oh, wait a minute. Where am I? Vincent says, I can only interpret, but this painting looks to me like spirit and soul meeting. Michelle, I love this picture so much. Jordan nods. Vincent, connection of spirit and soul. And Jonty provides us with runic emojis. Lowrider, North Carolina says projection. Jonty, wait a minute. The sound of one hand clapping is a slap. Laugh out loud. I really like Jung's art, says the big cat. Michelle, the slap is so zen. Vincent, nature is not to be subdued, but sublimated. The big cat. Thanks, Jonty. I think that is the answer. Never thought of that. And Jordan, yes, son. Jonty, the periodic table contains technetium, an element translated as artificial. Go figure. Jonty, it's when the master slaps the white belt, the sound of one hand clapping. Jordan, yes, sublimated in that we are nature also, not separated to conquer. So sublimated by being nourished physically and energetically by nature, not forest giants in concrete pots, so to speak. And I really like that comment because it refers back to me to the movie Pollock, in which Pollock's wife is commenting they're early in their relationship, and he's doing a painting on a wall, and she can't figure out what the painting's about. And she makes this comment, but Jackson, you have to refer back to nature somehow. And his response is, I am nature. And that really tells you a lot about both the runes and about yourself, in that we are nature, and it means what it means to you. And Kimberly says, it sounds like life and death, rebirth, reincarnation. Yeah. Anthony, very deep and individual in its practice. And Vincent says, beautiful. Okay, so we have gotten through it. And I apologize for the fact that Jordan was not able to get on, or he did get on earlier, but then we couldn't get the YouTube chat up, so we had to try again. And so now we have what we have. I hope this has been interesting and useful for you. Let me just see if I can. Well, in any case, going back, the sacrificial murder is, in my view, the recognition that we all have within us evil. And this was a particular evil that was in Dr. Jung's psyche, and he left it there for us to all read and see, and so did Sona Shambasani, the editor, left it there for all of us to see and to make our own judgment about it. And so I hope you'll meditate on that, and also consider buying the folio edition of the Red Book, because then you'll be seeing the various images as they emerge. It's hard to work with here on YouTube, but I have my own copy, and I actually purchased a podium, which I have in my living room as a standing desk, and I have the Red Book in a place of honor on that podium, because I often go back and refer to it, and it's very useful to have the images with the reading. And as you can see, it can be a little bit confusing if you're just reading the words. And Vincent says, I think we're something like half nature, or should spirit consider nature as well? Be considered nature as well? Yes, definitely. I'm seeking her, so excuse me for my reaching in the dark. She is part of your nature as well. And if you are not connected to her, I think you should meditate on that. In your case as a man, I presume you're a man, your soul will probably be feminine, but not always the case. Jordan says the birth and death in each full branch as prayer. Inhale bindu, exhale bindu, etc. All in the cycle of the breath of life, always creating, destroying, always when alive. Vincent, the eternal flame. Jonty, when we point a finger 3-point back at ourselves. Very good. Vincent, fleck in your neighbor mote in your eye, fleck in your neighbor mote in your eye. Yeah, sometimes we have a mote in our eye. And Anthony, wonderful, many thanks, Skip and all. Okay, so we have come to the end of 2 hours. It's a wall of fingers, and the door out is a mirror. Yeah, definitely. So these things are not easy, and they take a long time to reflect on sufficiently so that you know yourself and know what we're talking about here. Even it's difficult material, but I'm very honored personally by the fact that we get so many hits on these talks when we carry them through each week, and so we'll keep doing them. Next week we will be talking about divine folly. Let's see how long that chapter is. That's the next chapter. It begins on page 328 of the Red Book Reader's Edition. And we might get into the second night, next Secunda. I'm not sure we will get into that. That's going to be a longer chapter. But anyway, we'll be talking about the Divine Folly next week, which is a 5-page long chapter. And I'll look forward to seeing you all then. And thank you, Jordan, for hanging in there with me. Sorry for the technical trouble at the beginning.